Welcome to Offensive, where we have another Packers Coles coupon offseason. You thought we'd get Micah Parsons again. Maybe you'd get like a huge trade for a D tackle, some huge impact player. But what you got is some dudes. And we're going to discuss if this was a good move to get some dudes, or was it a bad move?
Well, we'll get into it because I think a lot of Packers fans are being harsh on us not wasting a bunch of money on some other free agents. And I got to say, this free agent class wasn't great. I'm going to be honest. I don't think there was a bunch of guys out there that were huge needle movers for us. So I actually really like the offseason. And I'll link it at the end of the video, guys. But we did a video about a month ago, the top 5 things the Packers need to do this offseason. And they've done almost all of them. So I am really happy. They've done 4 of the 5 for sure, and almost parts of the 5th one. We'll see how the draft goes, but I'm really happy so far, and we'll kind of get into it. So first things first, Hype. How do you feel about the offseason before we actually get into it?
So
I am really happy.
Jazzed about it, and so I'm going to take the position of being a little bit less jazzed. You know what I mean? Like I'm not against it. I think what they did was good, but I think what they did, what they had was necessary. Like they had to do it. If they didn't do it, they'd be totally screwed. Like even though it was kind of good, and I'm not saying I hate it, but like they kind of had to, because otherwise they would have been like such a bad situation.
Right.
They would have holes on their team where you're just like, what are you doing? Right.
Yes.
So they kind of had to. So like, I don't want to give them too much credit for doing things they literally had to do if they want to compete. Now
that's fair.
And a lot of people are saying like they should have gone on a bigger thing. Now, trading like for Carter from the Eagles, not really due to, I don't want to give up like a 1st and a 2nd or 2 seconds to get that guy.
Not to mention we'd have to break the bank to pay him money.
Yeah.
And he's got all these issues. I mean, there's just, personality wise.
There were a couple players like the center from the Badger that went to San Diego that I think they should have gotten for sure instead of.
I agree. I would have liked to have Biotish.
You know what I'm saying? There's like this much stuff where I'm like, dude, they should have done this and they didn't. And then it's kind of like evening out for me where it's like, It's acceptable, but I was kind of expecting them to go harder because Gudik was kind of hinting that like, hey, we're really going to go for it this offseason. And he kind of sort of didn't really do that.
I never thought they were going to go hard as far as free agency. I thought maybe they'd go hard in trades. Right. And there was a lot of word out there that they tried to get Dexter Lawrence, that they tried to get, Carter. And I'm for that.
They say they're in every deal. Now, the thing is that like getting rid of Rashawn Gary and being able to get a draft pick for him, that makes me go like, so far we're at like a B+. You know what I'm saying? So good job on Goot for doing that. I'm just saying the players coming in that they need to get to replace all those guys is like a C+ right now for me.
But here's the thing that I would say to that. So let's actually get into those guys. Okay. So let's start with those 3 guys. So we got Javon Hargrave, D tackle, released by the Vikings because he was going to get paid a lot. They have a lot of cap issues. So it wasn't performance based. He also played with our D coordinator Gannon before.
I think it was a little bit performance based because they expected him to be like Pro Bowl level, and he was just kind of
fair. That's fair.
Like decent.
That's fair. But in the Brian Flores defense with all the blitzing, like it's all outside edge blitzing. And he even had a comment that said, if you want good stats, don't be in Brian Flores' defense if you're a D tackle, because they focus on edge blitzing more than anything else. And D tackles are meant to hold up blocks and things like that. So, and that's fine. And if that's the way their defense is going to be, they shouldn't be paying a D tackle top money. Do you know what I mean? If they just need a guy to do that. And honestly, like in Gannon's defense, we let the tackles kind of go for it, or he lets the tackles go for it a little more. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons Hargrave signed. I'm going to bring it back to it. In the 5 things I requested, one of them was a mercenary D tackle, a 1 or 2 year contract on a veteran D tackle that knows what they're doing, that can take up space. And I just need him to make 1, maybe 2 plays a game. Hargrave is exactly that. And he wasn't on our list because he had not been released yet. But of the people on the list, I'd say he was probably the 2nd best player, maybe behind Sebastian Joseph Day. But some of these guys signed for crazy money. And the fact that we got Hargrave basically on a 1-year deal, 2 years if we want to keep him for about 11.5, I think was a pretty good deal. So I actually give that deal an A because that's exactly what I wanted the Packers to do, was get a veteran D tackle at around $10 to $11 million. That's exactly what they did. So I love that deal.
Do you think that because last year he graded out pretty well against in the pass rush?
Yep.
Like his pass rush win rate was like very good, which is awesome, right? But his run defense was kind of bad. Do you think that's
Right.
something, or do you think he's just kind of getting old and he's not quite?
I mean, I think he was always more of a pass rush D tackle. I don't think he's a Pro Bowl level D tackle, if I'm being honest, but like that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for a good defensive tackle, and I think he is a good defensive tackle. And he is a massive upgrade from the dudes we were throwing out there last year. Do you know what I mean? Right.
Well,
so
well, think about this. Think about the teams we have to play against. The Bears just lost their center. The Lions lost their center last year. The interior defensive
Vikings lost their
able
center.
to attack them.
Yeah.
So we have two guys that can pass rush now with him and Wyatt.
Exactly. And I like that. And again, in this Gannon defense, there's like really no blitzing. So you want a D tackle that can get to the quarterback because it's so essential they can, because we're not going to blitz, right? We already know Micah can do it. And here's the thing. Let me talk about Rashawn Gary for a minute too. Like, we don't need to replace Rashawn Gary. We drafted Van Ness 2 years ago. We drafted Sorrell last year, right? I know we lost Enigbari, but we've got two young guys that can play, and they'll probably draft maybe one more this year. I want to see those guys play. I want to see what they can do. I really liked what Sorrell did in the Vikings game against their starting offensive line.
He played better than Rashawn Gary in his time he played this year.
So there is no replacing Rashawn Gary. We didn't need him anymore. Not just based on the way he played, but based on the fact that we have these young guys that we need to see what they can do. So I think replacing Rashawn Gary doesn't even matter. Now, Romeo Doubs, let's talk about that. Why do we need to replace Romeo Doubs? We've got Wicks, we've got Reed, we got Golden last year, we've got Watson, and dude, people forget about Savion Williams. I think Savion Williams is legit. We got 5 guys that can play. Why do we need to replace Romeo Doubs?
Well, Romeo Doubs was very clutch for us at the end of the season. If you just ignore the the kickoff,
other than the Bears game that he cost us,
right.
100%.
Right. The thing is that we're getting our clutch guy back, Tucker Kraft. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we do have the clutch guy to go to in a 3rd and 8 or whatever.
And I think also, I've said this in previous videos, Doug, I think Golden, we drafted him because that's what he is. He is a hands guy that gets open, that was clutch in college playoffs, that was their go-to guy after transferring there. And we've seen it from him last year in the playoff game against the Bears. He made a huge play. I think he's going to take that role, and I'm very excited for that to happen. So no need to replace Romeo Doubs. Let's talk about Elton Jenkins. Elton Jenkins lost his job to a guy who was a guard. I know Elton Jenkins was a guard, but at least he played center in college. Sean Ryan came and took his job. So we're not replacing Elton Jenkins. We're getting rid of him because he couldn't even beat out Sean Ryan at center. So we don't need to replace him either. Rasheed Walker, guess what we did last year? We drafted a 1st-round draft pick at left tackle, right? 2 years ago, excuse me, in Jordan Morgan. So Jordan Morgan, we would have played him at left tackle this year, Doug. Remember in training camp, Jordan Morgan was out playing Rasheed Walker, right? Everyone thought he was going to be the starting left tackle. Turns out we didn't really have anyone that could play right guard. They put Morgan in at guard because Rasheed Walker was still good enough, even though he didn't have a great year, to play left tackle and have Morgan somewhere else, right? I think we're going to upgrade at left tackle because Morgan's going to he's going to get better. That's his natural position.
He might have taken Rasheed's job by the end of the season if he didn't have to do all the guard stuff and move around and do whatever. He might have. I'm not saying he would have, but he because the Packers kind of they want to trust the veteran there on the left side with Rasheed Walker, but he might have gotten more play time. And that was the expectation going into preseason that he would take the job. The coaches thought he would.
And to be fair, Rasheed Walker was pretty good last year. And not 2 years ago, excuse me, not last year. 2 years ago, Rasheed Walker was pretty good.
He was decent. And he's decent enough.
He kind of fell off. And I'm not saying Morgan's going to be a huge upgrade over him this year, but I think Morgan has the potential to be a very good left tackle, better than Walker ever was. So I don't think we're replacing Walker. I think he's already on the team. Now, the only player, that maybe we can't replace is Quay Walker. Now, we traded for Zaire from the Colts, but he's kind of a different position player. He's more of a middle linebacker than an outside guy with speed. So Quay might be the only guy that we need to replace of the guys that we lost. That's it. We don't need to replace any
kind of is like Quay.
Yeah, kind of, but not quite as fast, right? And I'm sure they'll figure something out. Plus, in this Gannon defense, the way that it plays is similar to last year, but it's not as reliant as on the linebackers playing up tight like that, which is why they want big cornerbacks. That being said, this is why I like the Benjamin St. Juste signing, because he is a big physical cornerback. That's what we need in this defense. And don't be surprised if the Packers go and draft another big cornerback, a 6'2" or a 6'3" guy to play in this defense this year. So I think even though St. Juste is St. Just, sorry, I forget how to say his name. I'm going to say St. Just.
It's St. Juice.
St. Juste. Okay.
That's how he pronounces it.
He was one of the best zone coverage corners in the NFL last year, according to PFF. And that's what the Packers are going to play all day. He's freaking huge, and he's an excellent tackler because he's so big. And we got him for $5 million a year. When I saw projections that he was going to sign for $9 to $10 million a year, we got him for $5 million for 2 years. That to me is an A. Not because, again, it moves the needle to make our defense amazing, but he is exactly the kind of cornerback that this defense requires, and they got him on a great contract. $5 million for 2 years is a fantastic contract based on how well he played last year. But again, he's not a starter cornerback. He only played, I think, 400 snaps for the Chargers last year. He's more of a situational guy. That's fine. For $5 million a year, based on our cornerback room, if we have a guy that can play 400 snaps and play at a high level, I'm just saying, that's exactly what I wanted. You guys will see again in the top 5 things to do video. He was on my list. I was like, we need a big guy. All right, and now let's get to the final one, Sky Moore. Now, he's replacing 7 guys because we had 7 guys return punts last year, and they all sucked. Every single one of them sucked. So if he makes the team, hopefully he does, we actually might have a real punt or kick returner, which we haven't had since Keyshawn was good at it 4 years ago, right? So I'm not saying that signing's an A. That I will agree with you, Doug. They just did because it's a damn requirement. They should have done it last year. The fact that we didn't have
he can actually catch the ball. He's like that's what he does for his job, right? Like
right.
he's serviceable, which we haven't had for like 4 years. It's all been guys who just fumble the ball.
Well, he's an actual kick and punt returner. Like that's actually why he's in the NFL. I know he got drafted kind of high by the Chiefs. That didn't really work out, but he's still in the NFL because he can punt and kick return, not because he's a great wide receiver. And that's exactly, and we're paying him next to nothing. We're paying him like a minimum contract. So again, I like the pickup. I don't want to give it a huge grade, but this is exactly what I was hoping for from the Packers. Not an over the top big spend year. And we'll get to that next, because I think the Packers are playing the game where they want to get as many picks in next year's draft, because guess what, guys? Next year's draft is freaking loaded. This year's draft up top, not very strong. There's some decent positions, but next year's draft, there's already talk about next year's draft being one of the best in the last 15 years. Now, that's just conjecture. Nobody knows what that is for sure. But if the Packers are going to load up on draft picks, I want them to load up next year, not this year. And we'll kind of get into that. So let's talk about compensatory picks. Let's talk about those. So everybody knows we lost a bunch of free agents, right? We were just talking about it. We lost Romeo. We lost Rashid, right? We lost Malik Willis to the Dolphins. So let me kind of walk you guys through how this compensatory pick thing works for the NFL, because I think the Packers are playing the game where they're going to try to get as many of these this year as possible to load up in the 2027 draft. So first rule, guys got to be a free agent, right? It can't be someone that you cut. They have to be at the end of their contract. So Elton Jenkins, who we did lose, will not count at all toward that because we released him, right? Obviously, he signed with the Browns, but we cut him from the contract, so that doesn't do us any good. So expired contract, not cut or traded. They have to sign to a new team before a predetermined cutoff date. I believe that's actually by the end of the next week. So anyone that signs basically before the draft, most of the time, you are eligible for a compensatory pick. Okay. So now the thing is, now that we've signed 3 guys, Doug, and we've lost 5 guys, it's not necessarily that those 3 guys are going to cancel out 3 of our guys that signed, because it's all based on quality. It's based on their ranking for like how much money they make. And here's the thing, playing time and awards and overall play is a really big determining factor in what kind of pick you guys are going to get, or what kind of pick the Packers are going to get. So let me give you an example, everybody. So Malik Willis right now is one of the top 4 highest paid free agents, right? You got Trey Henderson out there. You've got the Panthers contracts, but like he's kind of slated for a 4th round pick. But if he plays really well, if he ends up doing really well with the Dolphins, that could easily turn into a third. Also, let's say he gets hurt after 3 games and he doesn't play most of the season, that could potentially turn into a fifth. Like, it is possible, right? So this is all just kind of conjecture, but based on kind of where they stand and what their overall tier is. So you guys can see here on the bottom right? 17 million or more AAV is tier A. 17 or less is tier B. Actually, it should say right here, tier C is like 10 to 12, and then 6 is 12 or less, and then 7th is kind of whatever. So it's AI, guys. I apologize about that. But basically what you need to know is Malik Willis is in tier A. Romeo Dobbs is technically in tier A, right? Quay Walker is in tier B. And then Rasheed Walker is around tier C. So, like, we've got 4 guys in the top 3 tiers, okay? And it's all about net loss and net gain for AAV. So here we're going to look at the next page, which has Javon Hargrave, who signed 2 years, 23 million. St. Just, who signed 2 years, 10 million. So only 5 years, really shouldn't count against us. And then Sky Moore, undisclosed, it's around 2 million, right? But it's really, really low. So what's going to happen, guys, is Javon Hargrave's contract is going to cancel out either probably Quay Walker's or Rasheed Walker's compensatory pick, right? Malik Willis and Romeo Dobbs make considerably amount more than him, so there's a good chance those don't get canceled out. But Quay is a little bit more than what Hargrave got. Walker is a little bit less than what Hargrave got. And Enigbari, as you guys can see down there, also signed. There's an outside chance that maybe we get a pick for him. But it's also possible if, say, Juste plays a decent amount, that cancels him out. So my guess is, guys, is that we're probably going to get 3 picks, right? We're going to get 3 picks, maybe a third, likely a fourth, and then maybe 2 fifths, maybe another fourth and a fifth, which means since we don't have a first-round pick next year, Doug, we're going to have a second, potentially 2 thirds, potentially 3 fourths because of the Cowboys trade, right? And potentially 2 fifths, which gives us a lot of draft capital to maybe trade up, maybe to get a ton of guys to fill spots, or maybe even just, trade in the offseason for more players because it is a deep draft. So I think the Packers offseason plan hype was to fill some holes, but don't break the bank, right? Spend maybe this offseason giving a contract to Tucker Kraft. Maybe, they give a contract to somebody else. They've already extended Banks again, which is a little crazy. I don't know how I feel about that. But I think they kind of played it low key because they want to load up on draft picks in the 2027 draft. And I can't blame them. I think it's a great strategy. I know it's not sexy for this offseason, or it's not necessarily amazing for, the upcoming NFL season. But if you look at 2027 hype and you look at how much actual cap room we have compared to who we need to sign, right? And all these draft picks we're loading up on, I think this offseason might be a little more chill for the Packers. And we go really, really big next year, either with some other free agents or trading up in the draft to, kind of use that capital. So I'm really enjoying this offseason right now. I kind of like the plan. And I'm just going to tell you, hype, right now, I give him an A-. A- is where I'm at in this offseason. How are you feeling about it after everything we just talked about so far in the Packers?
Overall, it's a B because I feel like they should have gone for Bazillion or whatever the center for the Chargers. There's a few things where like it was super obvious they should have gone for it because he's better than Sean Ryan, and they could have got him for like even the same price or cheaper than Sean Ryan, right?
Right. I understand.
I get that you might want to keep Sean Ryan around because like what if Belton doesn't work out at right guard?
Right.
Because we've seen Belton is strong, but quick D lineman can just run around him, right? So what you need. Yeah. You need at least a guy that's a swing guy, some kind of thing or whatever, right? You need something there for like stability, but you can also like draft that a little bit. So there was a little bit of that, but like the thing about the moves, and I give them like their free agent signings, I give them a C+ because it's almost a B+. They pick guys that like Gannon's worked with before. And that, or like Hargrove, or a corner that's tall and fits into a system. They're picking players for Gannon's system, which is really super smart, right?
Yes.
Now we don't know if it's gonna turn out, but the thing is that like I give them I'm overall a C+, and that's not a bad C+. That's like really good in the sense that they had big needs at cornerback. They had big needs at linebacker and D tackle, and that's hard to do. It's not easy to fill those spots, right? But they did it, and they did it in an efficient way that didn't spend a lot of money, but they still have money left over they could do stuff with. So like,
yes,
they could do some more moves and make that C+ to a B, like a solid B+ for me, even though I feel like they kind of lost out on some obvious things in the offseason. And who knows, maybe the center didn't want to come here and he wanted to go to San Diego for some reason. Maybe
it's possible Biotish did, or maybe we offered him a contract and it wasn't as many years as he wanted or something like that.
Yeah, that can definitely happen, but they should have just gotten him. They should have just figured it out.
So. I agree, but I kind of, if you had to ask me, as much as I love Biotish, and he is a Wisconsin Badger as well, right? He's from Wisconsin, so like I want him to be on the Packers, but if you were to ask me if I could have Biotish or Sean Ryan next year at the same price, I'd take Sean Ryan. And the reason for that hype is that Sean Ryan's already showed he can play center, maybe not great, but decent, but he can play both guard positions and potentially tackle. Biotish can't play anything but center, maybe guard, right? But he's never played it in the NFL. Sean Ryan fills so many holes if somebody else goes down and if we draft a center. Now, I kind of agree with you. The offensive line is the one position that I feel like we haven't addressed correctly yet. I do like the signing of Sean Ryan.
I'm worried about it. That's why they're at a C+ right now.
Well, the draft is going to determine a lot, because I can tell you right now, there's 3 or 4 players in the 4th to 5th round area that I really want the Packers to get. If they get one of them, I'll be excited. If they get 2 of them, I'll be ecstatic, and I will feel much better about the offensive line. But I can almost guarantee you we draft a center hype, and maybe he beats out Sean Ryan like we talked about last week, or maybe he sits for a year or 2 to learn, and Sean Ryan eventually takes over the guard position, or maybe he doesn't, and we cut him after 2 years. I don't know. I like the idea of signing Biotish, but I think it ultimately came down to they were going to either sign Sean Ryan or they were going to sign a center around the same price. And I would just take Sean Ryan because he can play more positions. Can you kind of understand that logic that maybe they were going behind?
That's why I'm saying like I'm at a C+, but it can easily move higher. I'm just at the thing where I look around what happens with like the Bears and the Lions and even the Vikings a little bit. When they have the offensive line churning and doing well, they are crushing teams. The Bears, when their offensive line is healthy and together, their quarterback doesn't even need to play good. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And now the Packers this last season, the offensive line was terrible. Jordan Love played out of his mind compared to how the offensive line was playing. He was so good. Now, can you imagine the Packers offensive line performing at the levels of the Bear offensive line? Holy crap.
Right.
Our offense would like literally break scoring records. Like that's what I want to see happen, because it can happen.
I understand. And the Bears invested a ton of money and draft capital to get 3 brand new offensive linemen last year. We don't need to
be like all pros across the board.
Actually,
I'm just saying
I take it.
Good.
They got 4 new offensive linemen last year, and it worked out really well. And
really good, dude. Like Caleb Williams went from a dud to like everybody's like, this is the greatest thrower of the football I've ever seen. And like,
here's what you also got to remember about last year, Doug, is that we also had 4 different offensive linemen playing different positions. The only guy that was there from a year ago was Rasheed Walker, who had his worst season because Zach Tom was hurt all the time, right? He missed a bunch of games. We tried Elton Jenkins at center. That was a mess. We signed Brooks. He was hurt. That was a mess.
Their own fault.
So I agree. But we were also playing Belton and Jordan Morgan, both who are left tackles, by the way, in college at right guard for the first time. So we had a complete makeshift offensive line almost all year outside of Rasheed Walker, who had his worst season. Do you see what I'm saying? I think we are going to improve through just consistency alone. Because, yes, I know Morgan's going to take over at left tackle. That'll be different. But Brooks will be back and healthy. Ryan will be back and starting at center. Belton will be back and starting at guard. And Zach Tom will hopefully be healthy and starting at right tackle. We only had 2 games, I think, or 3 games all year hype with the same starting offensive line that started the week before.
That is true. But there's another element here that kind of like makes me uneasy. They're supposed to be this zone running offensive line that blocks well for the pass and like, use their zone blocking for like the run game. But they're putting all these guys that are like gap power blockers in there.
Giant men. Yeah, they're drafting all these giant dudes. Yeah, I know.
Running and they're confused and they're not sure. And it's like pick something and be good at it. They're kind of doing everything and they're bad at everything. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing?
Yes. I think last year hype was such a huge transition year for the offensive line. And it was a mess. And Zach Tom getting hurt I think was kind of a cascade of issues. Do you know what I'm saying? Because then we got to move somebody to right tackle that normally doesn't play there. And we've got Belton, who's a rookie, and Morgan, who's playing out of his position, and Brooks, who just came into the team. And Jenkins was an absolute disaster at center, which none of us anticipated. He was a disaster at center. So I think we're going to draft a center for sure, probably a guard, maybe even a tackle. We might even get 3 offensive linemen.
We're going to draft a guy that's like a pass blocker. We're going to draft a gap guy. We're going to draft you know what I mean?
I don't know.
Like, we're going in 3 different directions at the same time. I don't know what the hell we're doing.
I think we are trying to get bigger. I think that is going to happen. And
but this is the thing. Yes, they're getting bigger, but those guys cannot do zone blocking moves. They're too slow. They're too fat. And they're not, I mean, yes, they can knock a guy over once in a while and pancake him, but anytime they don't pancake him and get a good grip on him, the guy just goes right around him. So
no, I understand. I think our offensive line
that makes sense
is not going to be great next year, but I definitely don't think it's going to be as bad as it was this year. Just because we'll actually have some more symbiotic idea of who's going to play.
Those guys can't really zone block because they're so fat and slow. So
well,
are we now a gap running team? Is that what we're a power running team? Is that what we are?
We are going to figure it out. But let me say this too about the Bears offensive line, Doug. You know, they only missed like 3 games all year from their starters, like total. Okay. We had 4 guys miss more than 3 games on our offensive line. So like, I'm just saying, like, luck being healthy is a big part of being good.
Sure it is, but like I don't care about last season anymore, other than the fact that I know Sean Ryan and Belton and these big guys have problems with quick D linemen. So like, I agree. If you're running a power run game and the only thing you can do is just knock a guy over, like that's not an answer. You know what I mean? They still are not good blockers.
I totally agree. And the teams that handle that the best usually have a veteran center that's helping out those guards.
If they got
so I understand why you'd want a guy like Giannis.
Figure it out, but I'm like, there's no reason I think they can figure it out.
All right, fair enough. I'm a little bit more optimistic because I actually was really impressed with Sean Ryan the last couple weeks of the season.
But how well he's Sean Ryan's fault. I love the guy. It's not his fault. He's not a center. He's a guard. You know what I mean?
I know, but again, I think long term, we are going to get a real center long term, maybe next offseason. You know, other than signing Tyler Linderbaum, I didn't really want us to spend a bunch of money on any of these other centers. I'm going to be honest with you. And Linderbaum got paid bank, dude, that we just couldn't afford. Let's be honest, after we paid Brooks and especially after we paid Sean Ryan. But I think, okay, of the 5 things that I wanted to happen, and remember, I'm going to link it in here below. It's going to be around here somewhere, guys. Of the 5 things I wanted to happen, we've done 4 of the 5, and the offensive line is the only thing that we haven't addressed yet, but I think we will. So I'm going A- right now before the draft so far in the offseason. And Hype, what's your current grade for the Packers offseason?
My current grade, including everything, including getting the trade for Rashawn Gary, would be a B.
Okay,
because that move moves me up to a B from a C+, because that was a fantastic move by Goody.
It's straight up robbery. Thank you again, Cowboys. All right, so we're going to be back here. The draft is coming, guys. Lots of draft stuff. I know you've probably seen 8,000 mock drafts already on YouTube, but ours is going to be more fun because I don't know. It's just going to be messy. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Watch the video about the top 5 things. I'm telling you, man, I'm loving this offseason so far. Thanks so much. Have a good night, everyone.